This is Mike Tholfsen, product manager on the Microsoft Education team. And we've been doing this almost for 2 weeks now. And we're very excited to begin week number 3 today. So for the agenda, latest news and updates, which we always like to give. We've got Manny Sandhu from the Teams Education Customer Experience team. He's going to talk about getting started. And then we have an awesome guest, David Olinger from O'Day High School, who's going to talk a bit about Teams and shifting to the online learning conference within under a week. This is a few weeks ago, so a lot of creativity and serious growth mindset from David, and he'll be able to talk about how they use Teams to do that. So in terms of our quick links that we like to always talk about, there's our main remote learning site. We just updated the Teams Education Quick Start Guide, and that actually now is in lots of different languages. So it used to only be in English. Now, if you click this link, it will redirect you to the proper language, assuming it's been localized. And we've got many languages localized. It's in the somewhere between 50 and 100. I don't know the exact number, but it's many of them. And then also, if you want to join our remote learning community, we always encourage people to join. We have folks from all over the world as part of this community. I think we have over 4,500 members in there. We have educators, school leaders, IT admins, product team members, engineers, all sorts of people collaborating and interacting and learning from each other, getting help, etc. So for today's updates and today's news, and actually our esteemed producer, Marilyn Hoekstra, helped curate an incredible list of all the aka.ms links. There's all these different links that are coming out right now, beyond just aka links, but many of them. And she's put together a beautiful list in a spreadsheet that's public that anyone can access. I'll actually have a screenshot of this in a second. There's also a set of, oh, and I noticed I've got 2 book icons. There's only supposed to be 1, but that's okay. That's how we roll here. We keep it loose. We also have 2 great webinars from Dominic Williamson. He is actually on Manny's same team, and he had some really amazing, each of them are 30 minutes. I call it must-see TV. They're in-depth and really helpful and useful about just the basics of Teams. Part 1, how to set up your class, and part 2, an in-depth how to schedule and do online meetings. Highly recommend you watch both of those or send them out to people who are brand new to Teams and might feel like, wow, there's so much to learn. Dominic actually keeps it very simple and really easy to use. And also, I have the YouTube quick tip videos. I just put out one for inclusive classroom. So a bunch of these 1 to 2 minute videos on how to do inclusive classroom technology. That's fully out and available today. And if you want to see a screenshot, and there's more than this is just a smattering of all the great links on this guide that Marilyn put together. It's right here. Highly encourage you bookmark this one and share it out. You don't have to look at every single thing here, but you could probably find the thing you're looking for pretty fast, and a lot of useful resources. So with that, we're going to introduce Manny Sandhu. He's on the Teams Education team. He's a PM, and he works a ton with customers. He's in a different time zone than me, and he is 6 o'clock where he's rolling. So Manny, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome, Mike. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone, wherever you are here. My name is Sandhu, Microsoft Teams Engineering with a focus on education. I help institutions, big or small, with the deployment and adoption of Teams, starting with our friends in IT around how do we get started. So we're going to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes or so specifically around what is Teams. So for those of you that are new with Microsoft Teams, I'll do a quick overview of what Teams is. We'll sort of look at the journey of how do we get from we have nothing to how do we get it out the door.
Manny, are you able to advance the slides, or do you need me to?
I'm not. I'm actually I'll ask you to go ahead and be my navigator, if you will. Awesome, I see you building out. All right, Microsoft Teams is really, from an education perspective, it's a digital learning platform, right? We bring together all aspects of what you need to be successful, driving student success and student engagement through a digital learning platform. Microsoft Teams leverages meeting capabilities, chatting, a central repository for files, being able to do calling, whether it be one-on-one or one-to-many calling, or whether you're having a group conversation. All of those functionalities are built directly into Microsoft Teams. If you had a chance to look at the must-see TV Mike pointed out that Dominic has created, they actually talk about how to accurately and effectively use Microsoft Teams meetings to engage students, to set up right cadence with a large lecture, whether it be a small group. Chatting is obviously the most basic way of communicating. So how do people get a hold of you? Callings and files as well. One thing that's really amazing about Microsoft Teams is our ecosystem. So Teams is actually a platform. We have an app store inside of Teams, and within the education space, there's an education line item directly inside of our app store. So whether you're using Wakelet or Pear Deck or Flipgrid or a number of other applications, we generally have an app for that. And if we don't, there is a list of APIs available that allow you to bring in your own application if you choose to do so, or if you just want to pin a website, you can pin that website. The idea is you want to create that productivity hub or that classroom hub environment. And that last pillar there around global, Teams is available across the world. So whether you are delivering a lecture in UAE, or whether you have students in China, or whether you have them around the corner, Teams is available to them. We'll talk a little bit about the ecosystem, the device side of the house, but what's most important is the trust that and the administrative capability we have within our platform. So as you would expect with Microsoft O365, we have things like FERPA compliancy, HIPAA compliancy, a number of other ISO compliant certifications, about 40 plus of them, that apply to Microsoft Teams. We have security and functionality tools like e-discovery and legal holds and data loss protection and a number of other ones that I won't get into. But all of those features that make administrators and school leaders comfortable deploying this platform in their environment is available to them. Mike, I'll ask you to move forward, please. Really, the journey to Microsoft Teams depends on where you are. What I'm going to assume is most institutions are at the beginning. They're like, we just got our tenant, Manny, help me through the process. For those institutions that have the O365 and they're set up and good to go, you'll start at point number 2, but we're going to start at the start stage. And what does it really take to get started with Microsoft Teams? You'll notice, Mike, you can move on, please. You'll notice that there are a number of AKA links peppered throughout the presentation here. I'll work with the team to make sure they're added to that Uber master list of AKAs to make sure that everything's in a single repository. So getting started with Microsoft Teams, you need to enable the underlying services to make Teams successful. Teams relies on 4 services before we can begin. The first thing service is going to ask for is we want to make sure that people have an identity. They have an account in Azure AD and they're able to authenticate and log into your cloud system. Once they have an identity, underneath, or every time you create a Microsoft team, it will create an Office 365 group. So we need to make sure that that is enabled, and we need to make sure people can create that, as well as SharePoint, a SharePoint library underneath that. So you need to make sure that the SharePoint functionality is enabled within your tenant. For optimal capability, for optimal experience, you do want to make sure that you do have things, you do have Microsoft Exchange online, you have an Exchange mailbox. Now, we fully understand and appreciate there are institutions that are Google schools, quote unquote, we're a Google class. That's okay, right? I mean, we are an open environment. So you'll notice another AKA link there that will show you how to configure Google mailboxes and Google environments with Teams, what the limitations are or what the experience could look like. Once you have the dependencies in place, The next thing you need to do is apply licenses. Now, the education sector is unique in the sense that there are two license types. There's a faculty license type, and then there's a student license type. We're not going to get into what the differences are, but we need to make sure that we assign licenses to the right audiences, and that service is enabled for them to go into Teams, to create a team, and to leverage the service that is Teams. And then the last piece I'll actually break down into two components is distributing the client, so making sure that people can download Teams. And now Teams is awesome, and I sort of call this, everybody I discuss this with, Teams your way. So whether you choose to use a Mac, whether you choose to use a Linux client, or whether you choose to use Windows, whether you choose to have an iOS phone, whether you have an Android phone, whether you're a Chrome person, whether you're a Firefox person, whether you're a new Edge, Chromium Edge person, it doesn't matter. You're going to get a near parity experience across your ecosystem, whatever you choose to have. So you want to make sure that individuals have the client. Now, as an IT administrator, you can definitely go and push the client using a number of distribution tools, or you can send them to this short AKA link, which will allow them to download the client on their own. Obviously, from the mobile side, they're going to want to go to the app stores, right, their Google Plays and whatnot, to get the app experience for their mobile device. Carrying on to that, and it's actually not listed here, is readiness, right? So how do you train individuals to start using tools? Teams is an amazing tool and a productivity tool, but for those individuals who don't really have a lot of familiarity with it, you do need to make sure they have a little bit of awareness of what do I do in this space. And I'm gonna, it should be listed on the AKA link that Mike pointed out at the beginning, is there are two really good quick start guides I really like. They're PDF documents about 5 pages long. One is more generic, and the other one is specifically designed for educators. And it walks them through screenshots and points bubble arrows that said, hey, this part is for this, and this part is for that, and this is how you make a phone call. This is how you reply to a message. This is how you post a new message. This is how you make yourself add an emoji. I think that is probably one of my favorite resources that I like to share with everybody, because I feel it's quick, it's simple, it's easily distributable. And then on top of that, I did notice this on the Uber AKA link. There's a number of videos that we have that our team has developed, that Microsoft has put out there, short 60 to 90 second videos that people can consume at their own pace. There's also LinkedIn Learning. There's a number of things that they can do. So that's really the step one. So Mike, you can move forward. Step one, summarize it, make sure you have the dependencies in place, make sure you have the licenses assigned, and then lastly, they distribute the clients and they have a little bit of understanding on it. Next is step number 2. So let's talk about governance, if you will. So there are really, the team's life cycle is threefold. There's initial phase, there's active phase, so what happens when teams are ready to go, and then there's sunset phase. For the purpose of this conversation, we're going to be focusing on teams creation, as well as a number of policies that go along with that. So Mike, you can build this out. By default, everybody is allowed to create a team. They will actually allowed to create an underlying Office 365 group. Mike, would you mind forwarding, please? Thank you. I just build it out again. Yeah. So by default, everybody's can create an Office 365 group, but there's a couple best practices that I think everybody should be aware of. If you look at the two screenshots on your screen there, the one on the left is an individual who has permission to create a Office 365 group. They will get a purple button there that says create a team. On the other side is an individual who does not have permission to create an O365 group, which means they cannot create a team. They don't have that purple icon. a number of experiences could happen if an individual does not have that icon. They really could look at this and say, oh, I don't have permission to it. I'm going to go to another platform where I don't need permission from IT, potentially causing shadow IT, or they'll create a help desk ticket, which is going to draw more resources away from IT. There are the best practice in this space really depends on which type of educational institution you are. For K to 12, we really advise thinking about whether students should have the ability to create a team. Fortunately, it's very easy to toggle that switch in the Office portal. You can say students cannot create a team, and that's good. In higher education, however, we do recommend that students be able to create a team with a number of guardrails or governance in place. And the 3 governance policies that I address, sort of level 0 governance, is naming convention, so being able to add a suffix or prefix to the user entered name. The second one is blocked words, so being able to say these are the 5,000 words that we don't want to be used as names. So whether they be institutional type names or vulgarities, you have that list that you can create, so you can minimize that while allowing the service to be available. You have those guardrails in place, and the latter is group expirations or expiration policy, which sort of eliminates the unused teams in your environment. So let's move forward, please. All right, so now we have the underlying services enabled, we have team creation enabled, and you've said, all right, teachers, I want you to go ahead and create a team. There's a couple ways of doing team creation. The first and very basic one is a faculty member or teacher goes in there and says, create a new team. They'll click the class team type. And once they've created their structure in terms of channels and tabs, they can send the link to students and say, hey, please join this team. They can manually add the students via their email addresses. They can send a join code in which students themselves can go into teams and just do a simple code, which will bring them into that team. Now that's great for, rapid, we need to get out there as quick as possible, but it really puts a lot more effort and work on the teachers. For a longer term process, we feel that IT should lead this process. And there's a number of ways, like if you move forward, there's a number of ways in which IT can accommodate that creation of teams and rostering of those teams. The first one is a process we call School Data Sync. School Data Sync is an awesome resource which allows you to either leverage the One Roster API or CSVs to create teams based on classes, as well as maintain rostering information. It also allows you to do the lifecycle approach for a team, in which it will create the team, maintain the roster at the end of the semester or the end of the quarter. It can archive the team, it can remove the individuals from the team, as well as rename the team. And that team can stick around for things like grade challenges, or you want it to see the individual's impact. The next administrative tool is PowerShell. Most IT administrators use PowerShell. And they're very familiar with PowerShell. Underneath PowerShell, however, is Graph API. And a Graph API is the most powerful way of automating teams. It allows you to create teams. It allows you to add members. It allows you to add tabs and channels and post messages. It's an amazing tool for administrators that choose to use that route. And I'm going to publicly apologize. I actually missed an entire process within the presentation, and that's around policies. Once you've enabled teams and you've given them a license, we want to enable policies. And on the screen, we've highlighted a number of recommended policies for a K-12 audience. We want to disable chat. So when you disable chat, there is no student-to-student chatting. We want to disable all the meeting options so students don't have an unsupervised place for them to meet on this platform. So we've provided a list of policies in which allows administrators to set these types of policies and then let them feel comfortable with Teams as a service. I did jump the gun a little bit, and I apologize once again for that. But there are 3 automated tools I mentioned: School Data Sync, PowerShell, and Graph API. Now, there's a number of additional AKAs available to you, which we'll make sure we're added to that Uber link. But just to recap, to get started, you want to make sure that the dependency services are enabled. You want to make sure the licenses are assigned. You want to do a client distribution as well as some readiness that goes along with that. You want to enable Teams as a service and look at the policies that are in place. Best practice is have the most restrictive policies for your global policies and then do individual policies above that. And then think about how do we do team creation, automation, and rostering information. And that could be a short-term use a join code or something more longer term, which will use tools like SDS or PowerShell or Graph API. On that note, I will pass back to Mike and I'll stick around for a bit if there's any questions.
Great, thanks, Eddie. So lots of really useful information there for people who are trying to get up and running with Teams in their district or in their systems. And there's, as you saw, there's a lot of different links, information, and ways to do that. And so I think the slides will also be really useful for people afterwards who want to reference these. And we'll post the slides in video later. So next up, we have David Olinger from O'Day High School, and he's local here in the Seattle area. And I met David a couple of years ago. I went down to his high school and he had told me, hey, we just implemented OneNote class notebooks like a month or 2 ago. I wanted to have you come down and check out, see how things are going. And so I went down there, and that school, O'Day, was rolling like they've been using class notebooks for 2 years. They were way advanced for a school that had just barely started using it maybe a month or 2 ago, where they went one-to-one with devices. And so I was struck by how quickly David got everyone up and running. And then they were one of the very first teams to adopt, or first schools to adopt Teams. And so maybe a year and a half ago, they fully rolled out Teams at their school. And similarly, they adopted it very quickly. And so we wanted to have David on the show today. In particular, another thing that he did quickly, they were about to have a local conference, and he'll talk more about it. And myself and others were going to be speaking at it. And then the COVID-19 closures hit. And so in less than a week, David moved the entire conference at O'Day High School to be digital and online, all through Teams, which was a pretty monumental effort given the small size of their school. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David here, and we have his agenda. And David, if you want to take over the screen and do some demos and talk through what you're going to talk about, I will unshare myself right about now.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike, for introducing me, and I'm really excited to be here. If you are new to this event, be sure to go back and check out Jonathan Briggs' presentation about moving his school online. He really emphasizes how to communicate that. I'd also recommend going back and seeing what Scott Fitness says about using SCS. You just had some really great content here. And Mike, you did his, and he kind of goes through this really cool situation where when you want to have remote parent-teacher conferences, you can use the translator tool. So there's a lot of great content in that YouTube channel if you get a chance to see it. What I'd like to share is what Mike was talking about in regards to our conference. And I have pulled up here kind of how we did this on Teams, and I want to talk through it a little bit. Forget which one it is. All right, so you know, I got the notification from my principal that we weren't going to be able to host a conference because we weren't able to have a group of people meeting on campus. And I think initially everyone was like, well, it looks like we have to cancel it. And I thought, what a great opportunity to try and see what we can do online, because if this is the direction we're going, shortly all our teachers are going to have to present online. And, let's just use this as an example of what we can do online so that we have some capability to test. So I was able to kind of make a team. And this is the team I make. I called up all the presenters. I had a number of people off campus that would present that some weren't even familiar with Teams. I had some folks from Microsoft. Mark Sparvel was our keynote. As Mike said, he was here. We had Ann Kozma from Flipgrid. And I also had Dr. Ari Greenlee from Seattle University doing his presentations. And so we had to bring everybody into this space. And Microsoft Teams makes it pretty easy. I just made a team. And, in this managed team, I just added all the members. Now, that probably took the most time, because you have to add everybody individually that's outside of the organization. So I started to advertise immediately, and we got about 200 extra people coming to this conference, and it became global, which was really exciting to our presenters. What we did here is we just kind of made a channel for every single presentation. And the cool thing is that, this is Ann Kozma's, is that, we scheduled the presentation, people could get into it, they could chat in it. And the really cool thing about Teams is that it records them all. So we actually have this recording of the entire presentation. So even if someone wasn't able to make that particular session, they can go back and watch it. When the conference was running, there were meetings in all of these channels. And you could, if you wanted to, pop in and out, find the one that really fit you well, and then you could sit there and engage in that presentation. So that's how we did the conference. It was pretty easy, and I was really thrilled with the way it worked out. And even outside users who had never used Teams, there weren't a lot of questions about it, which kind of brings me to my next point, which is I think the gut reaction that's happening now with the COVID-19 spread is that, we have to cancel everything, or we have to, tamp down what we're doing. And as I've been thinking about how Teams is really, malleable, I'm thinking about, what types of other things can we do? And I've started, posting some blogs about this. And my new blog site is digitaltransformation.education. But I want to go through a couple other things that I think, as schools serve students, one of the biggest things we lack is that there are support staff that tend to come in and work with students. And those support staff can be special educators. It could be administrators that are supposed to observe faculty. It could be just someone that needs to pull the student out and give them a little bit of coaching. And so at O'Day, what we've been doing is working with our, special educators. We've been working with our para-educators and our administrators and our dean of students. And what they'll do is they can kind of get called into a meeting. So let's say you're a teacher and you're scheduling a session. You can add your support staff in as required people in that meeting, and they'll get a calendar invite and get access to your meeting that's scheduled in your channel. And they can come in and they can observe and they can support the students during that time. Another great feature of Teams is that you can actually make phone calls. I have students that have this on their device, they have it on their phones, and students that might need a little bit more support, you can directly, proactively reach out to those students. You don't have to use their own cell phone number. And you can make a call, you can chat with them. As someone that works with the technology, I'm able to use Teams to actually remote into their computer and show them where they're getting stuck. A lot of students left, they had some good skills, but they didn't know everything. And so sometimes they just get stuck, need a little help. I make a call to them, they can share the screen with me, they can give me control of that screen. Another feature for us that's been very, very helpful is that in a meeting, you can actually invite people in. So let's say a student's not even there, he's supposed to be in class, she's supposed to be in class, you can just type their name, it's gonna call them and invite them into that class. It's kind of ridiculous what Teams can do in regards to keeping people connected and bringing people in and out of the classroom that, given the remote situations, it might be very difficult for those people to do their jobs, but they can still have influence, they can still do their job. And the last thing I want to go through is kind of this meet now, this live event meeting. What I really like about the live events, and that's what we're doing now, is that you can schedule these and you can bring all sorts of outside people in. You can have your National Honor Assembly if you want to. You can have your pep rallies. You can bring the students who are supposed to be your student leaders or your student ambassadors or your football team or your baseball team. You can give them that kind of experience of bringing the community together, putting on an event while we're remote. It's not the best, it's not ideal to be remote in these times, but I think a lot of students are missing out on those connections and those events that schools do. And I believe a live event can make that happen. You know, when you schedule a live event, you know, you just have to give it a title. You can invite outside presenters. You know, I know something that our coaches are doing is they're inviting alumni to do live events to talk to our students. So they're inviting experts out in the field to come in and give those presentations. We're working on bringing some of that professional development back about access and equity using the live event. And since, you know, someone like me who manages PD, live events also track data. It tracks who's logging in, who's there, when they log out. So I can give, you know, continuing credit, or I can give clock hours if I need to. And then in the resources, you can get a recording of it if you want to make a, you know, if you want to make a YouTube video or you want to make a Vimeo channel. You can also get a transcript, and then you can get the attendee engagement meeting report. Just so you can see what we're doing on our end here with this is what the screen looks like when presenting. You're going to have some content you can share. You can have the presenters and you can share their faces. And you can queue up that and hit send live, and that's the content that your viewers are going to see. So it's a really great tool to keep moving forward with those things. Yeah, so I just wanted to really do kind of that overview, and maybe if people have questions or, you know, want to chat a little bit, that would be great. But that's more or less what I wanted to cover.
Well, thanks, David. This is great. I actually was part of this myself and did my presentation through the conference digitally. And yeah, David was sort of jumping in and out of rooms and helping out different presenters, and it was the quickest transformation to online conference that I've ever seen. So it was impressive, the scale of what you were able to flip over, and I think it just goes to show other people can do the same, right? I feel like if you could do it with almost no lead time, people who are planning could probably do this themselves as well. Yeah, and I'd like to say I'm writing more blogs that maybe nudge people in different directions, especially with Microsoft Teams. So I'm not sure if you share that in the resources, Mike, but if you want kind of step-by-step for these things or a little more detail, I have written some blogs on that. Yeah, we should actually, before I post the PowerPoint notes, what we should do is have you add a slide that has the blogs and links, and then anyone who accesses these PowerPoint notes later will have access to those. And so I think that could be helpful. What I'll do now is I'm going to share my screen really quick, and we'll get wrapping up here. And I'll give it just a sec to kick in. Just to recap of the resources that we always share, and again, we'll get David's added into this same PowerPoint, so people who want some of the links on the blogs he's been writing about exactly what they did, we'll get those in there. Here's the Microsoft Remote Learning site. The updated Teams EDU Quick Start Guide is here, and then please sign up for our Microsoft EDU Remote Learning community and join us. We have lots going on there. And in terms of the webinar today, the show notes will be posted probably an hour or two or three at this link here. They're also referenced in the overall scheduling spreadsheet. This webinar should appear on our YouTube playlist sometime tomorrow morning. All of our previous webinars are in a nice YouTube playlist. The link is right here. You can access and watch them anytime. And then just a reminder, support for educators in schools. We have our support link here anytime you need help be sure to file a ticket first. That helps us track it, and we'll try to help you out. And a big, actually, future webinars, last slide. Tomorrow, we've got Shay Harris, who runs our engagement team. She's going to be here to talk about the EDU engagement team. And then we also have Magnus Santorv, who's helped do one of the largest Teams deployments on Earth in Norway. They've done some serious large deployments over the last year. Wednesday, we've got Holly Clark and Matt Miller. We'll be talking about a new education partnership with the two of them. And then on Thursday, we've got the legendary Dr. David Kellerman. He's going to be talking about higher education and remote learning. He's done some incredible stuff at University of New South Wales. And so he'll be, actually, there's no other guest other than him on Thursday. Just 30 minutes of Kellerman should be fun. Our full schedule link is below, so all the upcoming ones, we're actually booking out to mid-April now. And so a lot of fun stuff coming up. You can see the upcoming ones. There's little iCals, so you can easily add to your calendar too. And with that, a big thank you to Marilyn Hoekstra and Bryce Kenning, who have been our behind-the-scenes producers. We're getting better every time, and we will see you soon.